Oi! Hello everybody, welcome back to another one of my drawing tutorials. I don't do these very often, but I hope to do them a bit more often. Hopefully my setup here is all good. Today, I'm just going to do something simple, but a bit of a learned concept. Faces. Everybody's got one, as long as you're alive and healthy. Usually, you can expect to start with a line or just a random circle or shape. It's important to know what you're doing before you start. And once you do, you can begin with the details. Having an eraser is always important. Of course, there's always a neck, although we're not going to be discussing the neck today. That one's a bit of a skinny neck. You can kind of see the dude's a bit scrawny this time around, eh? We have several factors within a face. We have the eyeball. We have the nose. You can do a bunch of different things with a nose. Let me focus in on that. There's all the details that go with having an eyeball and a nose. And there's also hair. Most people have hair. Not everybody does, and that's okay. Something I remember doing when I was younger is actually starting with the hair. I remember loving to draw hair. Problem with that, though, is that hair is not a very good base to start with. Because then, you don't really know what to do next with the face. You end up with stuff like this happening. This is definitely fixable, but only if you know how to fix it. With this, we can kind of manage to fill in some hair and then erase any excess afterwards. Now, depending on your drawing style, you may just draw a bunch of upside down V's for hair. Or, regular V's on top. Or you just shade it in the top of the head. And there, that's your hair. And then details and a pretty little smiley face. This is a face. That's perfectly fine. Now, one big problem that a lot of people have is symmetry. That is why I use, lines, but also symmetry, for those of you who don't know, is the art of, keeping things the same on multiple different sides. With a face, there's only really two sides, and they're usually symmetrical. Biologically speaking, faces, or basically any part of the body, is not perfectly symmetrical. Which isn't really important art-wise because you're not really going to see any difference enough to really depict it. But I discussed this on an earlier video. I think... obviously I'm a better artist now than I was back then. Practice definitely does that. But I'm going to say it again because it still holds up. Whichever your dominant hand is actually really important before you start drawing. Because when you're trying to do symmetry, it's very important if you're right-handed to draw on the left side first. Because if you draw on the left side, say you do this, then your hand's going to cover up that eye, and it's going to make it more difficult to make it more symmetry. See, now this eye is a lot bigger than the one on the right. So that right there is a good reason to start on the left side, because with this eye here, and ooh, my eraser, I can keep it relatively symmetrical. Now, there's also other ways to fix this without, relying on your dominant hand covering it up or not covering it up. There's also, distance from that middle line and the edge of the head. So, like, let's say this is the edge of the head, and this is the line down through the nose, like the middle of the face. And, just to keep it symmetrical, I'm going to put another line here for the other edge of the head. Let's say you want your eye to be, let's say it's about this big. You want to give it a bit of detail, relatively ovally. That's perfectly fine. And then the other side, try to keep in mind the distance between those two parts. You'll keep this in mind more critically at the beginning, but as you practice more and more of it, this becomes second-hand nature. Now, there is a bit of a problem here as well, though, because, as I said, symmetry is pretty important. There's also a bit of a problem with the angle here. You want to keep them somewhat symmetrical angle-wise as well. So I'm going to try and rotate this as best as possible. Also, don't want it to be in the shade. You guys need to be able to see this. That's my own personal problems, though. Okay, so rotating it here. I haven't really mastered this, but, like, you get the idea. First, you have to, like, know what you're doing, and then practice it over and over and over again until you master it. That's the basic idea of when it comes to art. And then, of course, there's the whole eyeball issues. This is an entirely whole new bag of worms. Because when it comes to, like, drawing eyeballs and whatnot, specifically, like, the pupil, a funny little circle in the eyeball, some people are a bit skeptical as to how big they want the eyeball to be. And that's a perfectly reasonable estimate to have. Especially when you draw, like, anime characters with heads this big. This is a very poorly drawn head, but it's an example. Do not use this as an example here. But let's say your character's eyes are this big. I don't know, let's continue with the dome, whatever. And, like, a normal size pupil, most pupils are around the same size. It's going to look small here, so you're going to want your pupils to be extra big if you have, like, anime proportion eyes or something. And specifically, like, magical girl type of anime. It's not just anime as well. Many cartoons also have really big eyes. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just an art style. Now, then there comes like noses and mouths. And noses are a bit easier. Let's say here's down the middle line. And though it probably won't matter at the moment. Here's the edges of the head. There is a bit of an importance to knowing where your nose is, but also to keep it coherent within your head. Because, like, you can draw a nose with this, but it's going to get disrupted, or it's going to disrupt this middle line here. Now, you can skip the middle line to basically skip a step here, and that can work, but you also have to know what you're doing. Once again, this It's basically the big old slogan of art. Know what you're doing before you do it. Personally, I erase the line before I start drawing the nose and the mouth. Now, the mouth is pretty unique in a way, as it's basically proportioned depending on where the chin is and where the nose is. It's not always in the middle. Sometimes it's towards, here's a nose. Sometimes it's more closer to the nose than it is the head. But also, say you want to draw some lips. This might be a bit, a little on the frustrating side if you want to draw some lips and a chin. Because now it's a bit too close to the nose and you're a bit limited on your details. So maybe you want to draw your nose a little bit smaller, or maybe draw it a bit closer to the chin. But then you're lesser on the details when you want to draw your chin. If you draw your nose too high, then you'll be limited with your eye placements. So, there's no real wrong answer, per se. To keep this as coherent as possible, there's no wrong answer. You can draw your nose like above your eyes if you want. Like say you're doing this. This is a nose, and these are eyeballs, and here's your mouth. You can do that. That can be your art style if you need it to be. I don't know. That's the great part about being an artist, is that, like, you're in the process of developing your own personal style. And, like, there's nothing wrong with that. Consistency is definitely a big thing that makes a better artist, though. Like, cool, you want to draw whatever this monstrosity is. It's your monstrosity. That's fine. But, like, you gotta own that monstrosity. Can you do this a second time and make it recognizable? Can you draw this from the side and make it recognizable? I'm sorry about that. Can you... Here's the chin. Here's the mouth. And here's the eye. Can you make that again from different angles, or from the exact same angle if you need to be, and make it recognizable to what people know is that. Now, there are a lot of different ways I can convey this, and I'll probably do that in different videos, mayhaps. So, stay tuned. I hope to also help with consistency on a different video, because there's a whole new bag of worms there. Today, I just wanted to teach you a little bit about symmetry and some tips and tricks with that, and also maybe teach you something that you can learn about your own art style. There's obviously stuff that I didn't cover yet, and I'd like to cover that in a future video. So, keep drawing. Peace.